When I was about 16, I lived in a small town. We had this abandoned house in my neighborhood. It was huge, almost big enough to call it a mansion, but it had been an empty house for a while. One day, on the first day of summer vacation, I suggested investigating inside of that house. All of my friends agreed. A few days later, around 7:30 p.m., we snuck into the house. The inside of the house had been burnt pretty badly, which we thought was the reason why the house was abandoned. Everything was kind of cool, but old and countrified. We started to check all of the upstairs and downstairs of the house, even the basement. Just at that moment, I saw something darting across the room. I started getting nervous, but then I thought to myself, it might be a squirrel or a raccoon, and brushed away my doubts. Then I went to the second floor, and my friends followed me. I opened the door, and there was a human-sized teddy bear sitting in the desk chair, facing us. We were spooked for a moment, but it didn't stop us from exploring further. We went to the third floor, and while we were searching around and taking some stuff, someone told us to look up. When we looked toward the wall, we could see the writing, "Get out." However, we all laughed. We talked about how brave we were, and then turned around to head back downstairs. All of a sudden, one of my friends, Jay, whispered that he saw something moving behind me. I turned around with my flashlight, but nothing was there. Feeling weird, we went down to the second floor again. Then, when we looked into the second floor room, I swear to God, the teddy bear was gone. Everybody in the house said nothing at all. We all agreed that we should leave this house as soon as possible. There was a door which was connected to the kitchen, so we approached the kitchen. But just at that moment, one of my friends gasped. Everybody slowly turned around, and the teddy bear was there. It was sitting at the dinner table looking towards us, and when we raised our heads upwards, we could see the writing on the walls. "Get out." Getting caught or not, I wanted to leave. I wanted to be out of there. I ran out of the kitchen, but I couldn't take one step further. There was a man who was standing there. He was blocking our way through the door. He was holding a knife. He seemed like he was almost in his mid-40s. We just stood there, staring at him, without saying anything or screaming. The man was blocking our way, and he took a step forward, staring at us with a big, wide smile. Then one of my fearless friends that found an old hockey stick from one of the rooms stepped in front of me and shouted to him not to come any closer. The man didn't say anything. He took a couple of steps back and slowly crawled into a big hole behind a seat chair in the corner of the room. We couldn't believe what we had just seen. Without any hesitation, we ran for our lives after he disappeared. As soon as we managed to get out, everyone started to run away in a hurry. As I was following them, I turned around and I saw it. The man stood in the window and waved to us, smiling peacefully, like nothing had ever happened. When we finally reached a safe place, far away from that house, we all just stood there thinking that it was the most horrible nightmare we had ever experienced. After that night, I never sneak into houses, especially any abandoned houses.
Question: would you build a website for a major brand with more than 200 million users using Wix? Well, we did. Hi, I'm Sivan. I'm an R&D manager here at Wix. Today I want to show you how we use our own platform, creating some pretty complex functionalities that may surprise you. First, all of our web pages are built on Wix. They get a huge amount of traffic. Users that sign up to Wix come with all kinds of needs and goals. So to match them with the best solutions, we built an onboarding flow on the Wix editor using custom code. We also embedded a web component using the custom element feature. These can be developed in any client-side technology like React, Angular,
A few years ago, my mom, my younger sister, and I went out for dinner at a local restaurant one night. As we were walking on the sidewalk towards the restaurant, I noticed a man walking towards us from the opposite direction. Well, I can say that this was normal, but there was sort of a creepy vibe about him. He looked like he was in his mid-50s. He was tall and had a dirty beard. He was also bald. Anyway, we walked inside the restaurant, and the waiter led us to a table. Then, a few minutes later, the same man from the sidewalk walked in and sat at a table close to ours, which was so uncomfortable. I thought this was weird, but when our meals came out, I just swept away any doubts about him. While we were eating, I noticed that he was staring at me the whole time. I tried to ignore him. When my sister and I were almost finished eating, the waiter came up to us and said to my mom, "Ma'am, don't worry, your bill has been paid." My mom was confused and asked him what he meant, and he said that the man who was sitting next to our table had offered to pay the bill for us. Although this was a cheap restaurant, my mom refused the offer and explained that she was creeped out by that man. The waiter soon nodded and went to go get our bill. When he left, the man slowly walked towards us, opened a strange duffel bag he was carrying, and pulled out 2 stuffed animals. The shapes of the stuffed animals were totally crushed, and I didn't realize that it was an animal at first. It was the most disgusting thing that I've ever seen in my life. My heart started beating faster when he came over to our table and gave the stuffed animals to me and my sister. Being a 5-year-old girl, my sister was going to say yes, but my mom and I both interrupted and refused. Then the man didn't say a word. He walked back to his table and sat down. After the waiter came back with our bill, my mom explained what just happened. The waiter said that the man paid for his meal, so it wasn't possible to kick him out. However, the waiter said that he would follow us out of the restaurant to make sure everything was okay. Later that night, when we came back home, I tried to fall asleep, but it was hard to close my eyes because I was still feeling uncomfortable. I just laid there, and when I looked at the clock, it was around 2 a.m. All of a sudden, I heard someone walking outside my window. It was the fall season, so all the dead leaves would make loud crunching sounds whenever someone walked on them. At first, I assumed that it might have been some type of animal. However, I abruptly remembered the man from the restaurant and began to feel scared. The sound of footsteps was getting closer, and I shut my eyes as tight as I possibly could. Knock, knock, knock. I heard someone knock on my window 3 times. Slowly, I froze. I knew that it was a red flag and that I shouldn't open my eyes, but I opened my eyes cautiously. Then my heart dropped. The man at the restaurant was peeking through my window. With his glaring eyes, his eyes were fixed on me and looked me up and down. I couldn't scream at all. I just lay there, praying that it must be a dream. However, he didn't do any harm to me. He just stood there watching me and then walked away after a while. I didn't get any sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, I explained to my mom what happened yesterday, and she called the police right away. However, although the police searched all over the area, they couldn't find him. They didn't know who that creeper was or what he wanted, but I'll never forget that night.